My ex showed up with my daughter after 7 years, and it changed everything. I never thought I'd be writing something like this. But here we are. My life was not perfect, but stable. I was 36 years old, married to my wife Elena for 6 years, and we had built a life together that I was genuinely proud of. We weren't rich, but we were comfortable. We had a modest house, decent jobs, and a relationship that, at least from the outside, looked healthy and balanced. That's why what happened that evening shook me to my very core. It was a Wednesday. I remember because Wednesdays were the longest days for me at work. I usually got home around 8:30 p.m., exhausted but relieved that the week was halfway over. When I pulled into the driveway, I noticed a figure standing by my front door. At first, I thought maybe it was one of the neighbors, but as I walked closer, my heart nearly stopped. Standing there was Irina, my ex. I hadn't seen her in over 7 years. Our breakup was messy, emotional, and final, or so I thought. She looked different, older. But the moment our eyes met, all the old memories came rushing back. But it wasn't just her standing there. She was holding the hand of a little girl, maybe 3, maybe 4 years old. And that's when Irina said the words that flipped my entire world upside down. "Sergey, this is your daughter." I froze. I didn't even know how to respond. My brain was trying to process what I was hearing, but it felt like someone had just cut the ground out from under me. "What?" I finally managed to say, my voice shaking. "She's your daughter," Irina repeated, her eyes red from what looked like hours of crying. "I've raised her alone, but I can't do it anymore. You need to take responsibility." The little girl clung to her mother's coat, peeking up at me with wide, uncertain eyes. Something deep inside me twisted. Could this really be happening? I glanced back at my house, where I knew Elena was waiting for me. She had no idea who was at the door. She had no idea that my past had just come crashing into our present. Irina didn't wait for me to speak. She pushed forward. "Her name is Anya. She's 3, and she deserves to know her father. I can't keep doing this on my own. I need help financially and otherwise. You owe her that much." Her words hit me like a freight train. On one hand, a storm of anger built inside me. How could she hide this from me for 3 years? On the other hand, when I looked down at the little girl's face, something in me softened. What if she really was mine? What if I had a daughter out there I never knew about? Before I could even form a proper response, Elena opened the door. "Sergey, what's taking so long?" She stopped mid-sentence, her eyes landing on Irina, and then on the child. Her expression changed instantly, from curiosity to suspicion to something much colder. "Who is this?" Elena asked, her voice sharp. Irina crossed her arms and straightened her posture. "I'm his ex, and this is his daughter." The silence that followed was unbearable. Elena looked at me, waiting for me to deny it, to laugh it off, to say it was some kind of insane mistake. But I couldn't, because deep down, I wasn't sure it wasn't true. And just like that, the life I thought I had under control unraveled in a single evening. Elena's eyes were sharp, searching, trying to find any hint of a lie in my face. I could see the confusion and hurt building up in her expression, and honestly, I didn't blame her. I didn't blame her at all. I would have reacted the same way. I started, but words failed me. How could I explain something I barely understood myself? How could I suddenly justify 7 years of silence I had no part in creating? Irina stepped forward, her tone firm but controlled. "Elena, I know this is shocking. I know it seems impossible, but she's really his daughter. I didn't want to tell anyone before, not you, not Sergey. I just couldn't handle it on my own anymore. I'm not asking for revenge. I'm asking for responsibility. That's all." Elena's face twisted into disbelief. You're telling me this now, after all these years?" "Yes," Irina said quietly. "I didn't want to ruin anyone's life. But Anya, she needs her father, and she deserves him." I looked down at Anya, my heart aching. She didn't fully understand what was happening. She just clung to Irina, blinking up at me with those huge, trusting eyes. How could I ever say no to her? I tried to speak again. "Elena, I didn't know. I swear, I didn't know she existed." Elena's gaze was ice. "You didn't know, or you just didn't tell me?" I opened my mouth to respond, but even my own thoughts felt jumbled. I had no idea. I truly had no idea. I had loved Irina, yes, but our breakup had been abrupt and messy. She had left without saying much, and I had moved on, believing that chapter of my life was closed. But now, this little girl was standing in front of me, and I had no choice but to face it. Irina handed me a folder, thick with documents, medical records, birth certificates, even photos from Anya's first years. "See for yourself," she said. "Everything is here. No lies." I took the folder, my hands trembling. Every page confirmed the impossible truth. I had a daughter, and I had been completely unaware. Elena turned to me, her voice breaking. Why didn't you ever check? How could you just live your life and not know? I never had a chance, I said quietly. I never knew. I swear, Elena. I had no idea she even existed. Her arms crossed, her shoulders tense. And what now? What do you plan to do? I swallowed hard. I didn't have a plan. I didn't know what the right move was. But I knew one thing. I couldn't abandon her. Not now. Not ever. I'm going to help, I said finally, my voice steadying. I don't know exactly how yet, but I will. I'll be there for Anya. And I want us to handle this properly, legally, civilly, whatever it takes. But I won't turn my back on her. Irina nodded, a hint of relief in her eyes. That's all I wanted. I'm not trying to take your life apart, Sergey. I couldn't do it alone anymore. Elena didn't respond immediately. Instead, she studied me, her eyes narrowing as if searching for any trace of deception. After a long pause, she finally said, All right, but we do this carefully. You can't just waltz into her life and pretend nothing happened. And I want to be included in every decision. This affects us too. I nodded, grateful for even this small concession. I knew the road ahead would be complicated emotionally, legally, and practically, but at least I wasn't alone. Over the next few days, we began to navigate the impossible. I met with lawyers, Irina, and I discussed visitation and financial support, and Elena had to process the idea of me having a child with my ex. It was hard, but surprisingly, we started to communicate carefully, respectfully, as adults trying to do the right thing. And then came the first moment I truly bonded with Anya. I was sitting on the floor of my living room, toys scattered around us, and she climbed onto my lap, shy but curious. Daddy? She asked, her little voice trembling. Something in my chest tightened. I swallowed, fighting back tears. Yes, I'm your daddy, I whispered, her small hands wrapped around my neck. And in that moment, the world outside didn't matter. 7 years of ignorance, confusion, and shock all faded. She needed me, and I needed her too. The first few weeks after Anya entered our lives were chaotic. I don't think any word could truly capture the mixture of fear, excitement, guilt, and joy I felt every single day. Elena was still cautious. Some days, she would watch me with Anya from across the room, her eyes wary, as if she were waiting for me to make a mistake. I knew it wasn't easy for her. She had married me expecting a life together, just the two of us, and now there was another person who had a claim to my heart and attention. But Elena surprised me. Slowly, cautiously, she began to soften. She would bring snacks for Anya, or sit and read a bedtime story when Irina couldn't make it. She asked questions about what Anya liked, what toys she preferred, what made her laugh. Every time she did, I felt a mixture of relief and awe. I had never expected Elena to respond so kindly or so maturely. Irina and I kept things strictly about Anya. We talked through schedules, financial support, and medical care. It wasn't perfect. There were disagreements, tense moments where old wounds from our past crept in. But somehow, for the first time in years, I felt like I was finally doing something right. One evening, Elena and I were sitting on the couch after Anya had gone to bed. The house was quiet except for the soft hum of the refrigerator. I still can't believe this is real, she said softly. A daughter I never knew I'd have to share. And you? I mean, it's just a lot. I know, I said. I still wake up some nights thinking this is all a dream. But I want to do this right, Elena. I want us to handle this as a family. She nodded slowly. I just don't want us to lose what we have because of her. I love you, Sergey. But it's a lot to take in. I love you too, I said, taking her hand. And I promise you, I'll never let that change. Anya doesn't replace anything. She just completes another part of life I never knew I was missing. Weeks turned into months. Anya started visiting more regularly, and I began to build a real relationship with her. I took her to the park, helped her with puzzles, read bedtime stories. Every little milestone from her first steps to her first words felt like a miracle. I had been denied for too long. And then came the first real test. Irina, struggling with her own financial problems, asked if Anya could stay with me for a few weeks while she sorted things out. Elena and I talked it through at length. She was hesitant, scared that having Anya live under our roof, even temporarily, would disrupt our life. But in the end, she agreed. Those weeks were intense. I discovered the sheer energy a 3-year-old could generate. I discovered patience I didn't know I had. And unexpectedly, I discovered Elena's heart expanding in ways I hadn't imagined. She helped with meals, comforted Anya when she cried, and even celebrated her little achievements. I watched her gently interact with my daughter, and I realized just how strong and compassionate she really was. One night, as I was tucking Anya into bed, she whispered, "Daddy, I like our house." My throat tightened. "You like it here?" I asked. She nodded. "I like it with you. And with Elena." I looked at her, her innocent little face lit by the soft glow of the nightlight, and I felt a surge of gratitude. Gratitude for a second chance. Gratitude for my daughter. Gratitude for a wife who, despite everything, chose to embrace this complicated reality with me. But as comforting as that moment was, I knew the road ahead would still be full of challenges, blending past and present, navigating the emotions of everyone involved, and figuring out what it truly meant to be a father after all these years. It wasn't going to be easy. Still, for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was exactly where I was meant to be. The next few months tested me in ways I never expected. It wasn't just about building a bond with Anya, it was about navigating the legal and emotional minefield that came with suddenly being a father to a child I hadn't known existed. Irina wanted to establish formal custody and support arrangements. I agreed it was the right thing to do, but the process was emotionally draining. There were meetings with lawyers, background checks, mediation sessions. Each step reminded me that this wasn't just about me anymore, it was about Anya, Elena, and the tangled web of past mistakes and secrets. Elena and I attended these meetings together, which, at first, she hated. She felt awkward, like an outsider in a world that should have been mine alone. I understood, but slowly, she began to see that this wasn't about taking anything away from us. It was about giving Anya the security and stability she deserved. One particularly difficult day, we met with the mediator. Irina and I sat across from each other, the tension almost tangible. "I just want what's best for Anya," Irina said, her voice firm but exhausted. "I can't do it alone anymore, and I shouldn't have to. I just want her to have her father involved in her life." "I agree," I said. "I want that too. And Elena and I will support that. But we need a clear plan. Regular visits, financial support, everything official." Elena nodded beside me. "We just want what's fair and safe for Anya." The mediator scribbled notes and nodded. It was all very procedural, but underneath it, emotion simmered. Every word reminded me of the years lost, the milestones missed, the birthdays and first words I hadn't been there for. I fought back tears, focusing on the bigger picture. I was finally going to be there for her from now on. At home, things were equally complex. Integrating Anya into our daily life was a challenge. She had her routines, her own little quirks, and sometimes she would become overwhelmed by the new environment. I spent nights soothing her, helping her adjust, and learning to read the subtle signals of a child who had been through a lot despite her young age. Elena's patience was tested too. There were moments of frustration when Anya cried for Irina, or refused to eat, or acted out in ways typical for a toddler. But she never lashed out at me. She supported me, and over time, even found ways to connect with Anya herself. One afternoon, we were in the kitchen baking cookies together. Anya was gleefully smearing flour everywhere. Elena was laughing despite herself, and I realized something incredible. Our house had transformed. It wasn't just a home for Elena and me anymore, it was a home for all of us. There were still moments of tension, though. I caught myself worrying about how much Irina's presence would affect Elena, how she might feel replaced or sidelined. We had long conversations, sometimes tense, about boundaries, respect, and trust. And I learned that honesty, brutal, uncomfortable honesty, was the only way forward. One evening, Elena turned to me as we sat quietly after Anya had gone to bed. "I don't think I realized how much I could love someone else's child," she said softly. I looked at her, stunned. "You love her?" "Yes," she said, smiling faintly. "It's strange, but I do. I see how much you care for her, and I see how much she needs you. And I guess, in a way, I need her too. She's become part of us, whether I like it or not." I felt a surge of gratitude I couldn't put into words. Elena had embraced something that would have driven many people away. She had chosen to love not only me, but also the daughter I had never known, and that love created a bond stronger than I could have imagined. Even so, challenges continued. Holidays were difficult, blending family traditions with Irina's presence and Anya's needs. School preparation, doctor's appointments, and even bedtime stories became exercises in careful planning. And through it all, I realized that being a father wasn't just about showing up, it was about commitment, patience, and constant learning. By the end of that year, something had shifted. Anya called me daddy without hesitation. Elena held her hand without reservation. And even Irina, though still protective, began to relax, seeing that I was fully present in our daughter's life. It wasn't perfect. Life rarely is. But it was real, messy, complicated, and beautiful all at once. And for the first time in years, I felt truly alive. By the time Anya had been coming to our house regularly for a few months, life had settled into a rhythm, though it was anything but ordinary. Every morning, I woke up to the sound of little footsteps padding across the hallway, tiny giggles that were impossible not to respond to, and the sight of Elena gently coaxing Anya into breakfast. At first, I worried about the little things. Would Anya accept me fully? Would Elena feel pushed aside? But slowly, I began to notice subtle changes that made me hopeful. Anya's laughter became the glue of our days. I remember one afternoon when we decided to build a fort in the living room out of couch, cushions, and blankets. She squealed with delight as we crawled under the blankets, and Elena joined us, smiling as she added her own pillows to the pile. In that moment, the three of us were just a family. No past mistakes, no complicated histories, just us, sharing a simple, joyful moment. Of course, not every day was perfect. Some mornings were filled with tears, tantrums, and stubborn refusals to wear clothes or eat breakfast. I learned quickly that patience wasn't just a virtue, it was a necessity. Elena's patience surprised me most of all. Even when Anya cried for Irina, she never let frustration take over. She would sit calmly beside Anya, gently explaining, "Mommy's coming back soon, but we're going to have fun while she's gone." And Anya would eventually relax, hugging Elena's leg and smiling again. School visits brought another layer of challenge. As Anya was preparing to start preschool, I found myself juggling meetings with teachers, filling out forms, and trying to coordinate schedules with Irina. Elena joined me on some of these visits, quietly supporting me as I navigated this new role. One day, a teacher pulled me aside. "Your daughter is very bright," she said, "and she's clearly well-loved. It shows in how confident and happy she is." I felt a mix of pride and guilt. I had missed her first years, yet here I was, trying to make up for lost time. Holidays were another test of our evolving family dynamic. During Christmas, we invited Irina to join us for a simple dinner. Initially, the thought of celebrating under the same roof made my stomach twist, but it turned out to be surprisingly pleasant. Anya ran around excitedly, tearing paper from presents, and Elena helped her put together toys. Irina watched from the couch, smiling softly. For the first time, I felt like maybe this complicated arrangement could work. At night, after Anya went to bed, Elena and I would sit quietly in the living room, decompressing. "I never thought I'd be okay with this," she admitted one evening, a mug of tea in her hands. "But seeing you with her, seeing her with me, I think I'm starting to understand." "I didn't know it would be like this either," I said. "I was scared, confused, but I love this little girl, and I love you for accepting all of this." We held hands, feeling an unspoken understanding passing between us. It wasn't perfect, and I knew there would be struggles ahead, but for the first time in years, I felt like we could handle anything together. As the months passed, life with Anya became a beautiful chaos. Every day brought a new challenge, a new milestone, or a small victory that reminded me how much I had missed. Bath time became a battle of giggles and splashes, me carefully trying not to slip on the wet tiles while Elena gently washed Anya's hair. Bedtime stories were my favorite moment, seeing her eyes widen with wonder as I read aloud, her tiny hands clutching my sleeve, asking me to stay just a little longer. Yet, it wasn't always easy. Conflicts inevitably arose. Anya sometimes refused to go to bed, crying for Irina instead of understanding why she had to sleep at our house. Elena and I would discuss strategies late at night, debating whether to enforce rules strictly or show leniency to ease her transition. We disagreed at times, sometimes raising our voices in frustration, but we always reminded ourselves that Anya's well-being came first. One weekend, we took Anya to her first playground birthday party. She was shy at first, clinging to my arm, but soon she was running around, laughing, and interacting with other kids. I watched Elena from a distance, helping Anya negotiate slides and swings, smiling warmly when she cheered her on. I realized how much had changed. Elena, once cautious and distant, was now fully embracing the role of a mother figure in Anya's life. But not all challenges were about daily routines. Holidays brought complicated emotions. On Anya's first Christmas with us, I worried about the presence of Irina. Would Elena feel uncomfortable? Would Anya sense tension? I remember standing in the kitchen, kneading dough for cookies while Elena and Irina sat at the table, talking quietly. At first, there was awkwardness. Then, slowly, the walls began to crumble. Irina shared funny stories from Anya's early years, and Elena listened, laughing at her misadventures. By the end of the evening, I looked around the room and realized something incredible. A fragile, imperfect family had begun to take shape. School events tested our coordination. Parent-teacher meetings required careful planning, Elena and I often had to navigate Irina's schedule while ensuring Anya felt supported and secure. Every step felt like walking a tightrope, balancing past mistakes, current relationships, and the needs of a child who deserved stability. One evening, after Anya had gone to bed, Elena and I sat on the balcony, sipping tea. I never thought I'd be okay with this arrangement, she admitted softly, staring at the city lights. But I see how much she needs you, how much I've come to care for her too. I think I'm finally starting to understand. I took her hand, feeling the weight of our shared experiences. I was scared too, I confessed. I didn't know if you'd accept her, if we could make it work. But now, I can't imagine life without her, or without you. Elena smiled faintly, resting her head on my shoulder. We'll figure this out, she whispered. Together. By now, Anya had started calling Elena mommy sometimes. And while it took time for all three of us to find our balance, small moments of connection multiplied. A simple game of hide and seek, baking cookies, reading bedtime stories. Each moment became a thread in the fabric of our new family life. Even Irina noticed the change. She no longer hovered anxiously, and she allowed Anya to spend longer periods with us, trusting that she was in good hands. Our communication became smoother, less tense, more cooperative. It wasn't perfect, it never would be, but it was real, messy, complicated, and it was beautiful. By the time a full year had passed since Anya first came into our lives, everything had changed, yet some things felt more constant than ever. I had learned the intricacies of fatherhood in ways I never imagined. I knew which cartoons made her laugh uncontrollably, which foods she refused to eat, and how to soothe her when nightmares woke her in the middle of the night. Elena had become not only a supportive partner, but a co-parent in every sense. She had moments of doubt, of course, when old insecurities surfaced, but her love for Anya was genuine. I saw it in how she knelt beside Anya when tying her shoes, in the gentle way she encouraged her first attempts at drawing, in the quiet pride in her eyes when Anya learned a new word. It struck me that love doesn't have to be conventional to be real. It could grow organically, in the smallest gestures, in shared laughter, in patience during tears. Irina continued to play a role in Anya's life, visiting regularly, sending updates, and ensuring that our daughter felt secure in both households. There were still difficult conversations, moments of tension over schedules, financial support, and parenting choices, but the atmosphere had shifted. Instead of feeling like adversaries, we were collaborators, united by the shared goal of raising a happy, healthy child. One particular afternoon stood out. I had taken Anya to the park, and Elena had joined us after work. She watched quietly as I helped Anya climb a small jungle gym. She cheered when Anya reached the top, her eyes shining with pride. And then, unexpectedly, Anya turned and hugged Elena tightly, saying, "I love you, Mommy." My heart swelled. I could see Elena's lips tremble as she hugged her back. I realized then that our lives had formed a new normal, one none of us could have predicted, yet one that felt entirely right. Holidays became moments of shared joy rather than anxiety. During the next Christmas, we decorated the tree together. Elena, Anya, Irina, and we exchanged small gifts, shared laughter, and even managed to sit down for a dinner without tension. Anya's eyes sparkled as she tore into presents, delighted by both the toys and the attention from everyone around her. In that moment, I knew we had succeeded in creating something extraordinary from the chaos of the past. School milestones were equally poignant. I attended parent-teacher meetings, volunteering for class activities, and proudly watched Anya learn to write her name, count to 20, and recite poems. Elena and I would exchange proud glances, quietly acknowledging the teamwork that had brought her to this point. Even Irina would occasionally watch from the sidelines, her expression softening as she realized her daughter was thriving. Through it all, I reflected constantly on the journey that had brought us here. 7 years ago, I had no idea this little girl existed. I had moved on, believed the chapter of my life with Irina was closed. And yet, life had a way of surprising us, of forcing us to confront the past while embracing the present. It was messy, complicated, and sometimes painful, but it was real. And in that reality, I found a depth of love I hadn't known I was capable of. There were nights when I sat alone in Anya's room after she had fallen asleep, watching her chest rise and fall, her tiny hands clutching a stuffed toy. I whispered promises to her, vows I would never break, that I would be there for her, guide her, protect her, and love her unconditionally. And I whispered similar promises to Elena, thanking her for her patience, her support, and her willingness to embrace this complicated, unconventional family. Looking back, I realized that life doesn't always follow a straight path. Sometimes it surprises you with joy disguised as chaos, with challenges that eventually lead to growth, and with love that expands in ways you never expected. Anya's presence taught me more about responsibility, patience, and selflessness than I could have imagined. Elena's love and understanding reminded me that family isn't just defined by biology, it's defined by commitment, compassion, and shared experiences. As I watched Anya laugh with Elena on a sunny afternoon, a warm breeze brushing against our faces, I felt a profound sense of peace. The past could not be changed, and mistakes had been made, but the present was ours to shape, and shape it we had, together. I had a daughter I never knew I needed, a wife who had chosen to love beyond her own expectations, and a future filled with challenges and triumphs alike. Life was unpredictable, messy, and beautiful, and in that unpredictability, I discovered something I had long forgotten: that family, in all its imperfect glory, is worth every struggle, every tear, and every moment of fear. For the first time in my life, I felt fully present, fully alive, and fully grateful.